Far corner of the field, 35 to shoot for the Orange as we start overtime. Golden goal, pass to a Cutting Hiltz. He darts in, he scores! Owen Hiltz, the senior leader, sends the Orange to the quarterfinals off a feed from Spolina, and an epic comeback in one of the craziest lacrosse games you'll ever see. The Orange advance past Harvard in overtime.
Yes. That's the broadcast team of Tim Leonard and Kyle Fetterly, who's on the celebrity hotline right now. Kyle, we got a rare triple woohoo from you there.
Yeah, I kind of get into it during the games. I get pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, yes, you do. And it's we've been calling you the John Madden of college lacrosse broadcasting.
You're quickly you're becoming a legend.
Yeah, legend. Legends are for guys in the Hall of Fame, not me.
Well, you know, if there was a Hall of Fame for, because you've been with the college since like the early '80s.
Yeah, I started at Syracuse. Well, as a freshman in '77, and in '81 I got an assistant's job in the equipment room, and a couple years later I was the head guy. And 44 years later, we're gonna hang up my duffel bag.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm retiring in a few months here.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't know that. Have you? Obviously, other people have known. Have you been talking about that, or do we have a scoop here?
Oh, everybody in the athletic department knows about it, but you have the first official scoop.
Hey, look at that. Well, kind of good for you. And I remember because the gym that I used to go to, JT went to the same gym, and you might have been still roommates with him back then. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, absolutely. And it's been a great ride. I mean, it really has.
We'll get to the game, tomorrow's game in a moment, Kyle, but all the 40-plus years as the equipment manager, and I know I've asked you this before, but maybe it's a different answer now, but because you've been equipment manager, football, basketball, lacrosse, etc.
Yeah.
I guess the three biggest moments, and then I'll ask you a different question about specific athletes, but as far from your perspective, three biggest moments in your career at SU.
Wow. Talk about being put on the spot at 7:30 in the morning. Holy cow, the three biggest. I don't know. You know what? It's too hard to come up with an answer like that. I mean, every time you win a national championship, that's a monster moment. And, of course, the men's lacrosse team have won 11. Basketball's won 1. Field hockey's won 1. Cross country won 1.
Soccer.
Since I've been here, soccer has been, those boys were great. I mean, so those are all the big things. You know, the one thing I learned over the years is you take care of the kids the best you can. You cry with them when they lose, and you celebrate with them when they win. So, I mean, that's because they put so much heart and soul and effort into it, you know, and you really want to see them succeed. And that's one thing that I've been passionate about, you know, make sure they're safe. You know, it's almost like I always say this, Kyle, when I get asked, Kyle, do you have any kids? I go, yeah, 600 of them. But I get to give them away. I get to give them back at night. That's all. Yeah, but it's hard to pick out three. I guess one of the ones, Glenn, that would rank up there would be the 1983 lacrosse championship game when we were dead in the water at 12-5 with 5 minutes to go in the third period, and I mean we played like we did the other day. It was just awful to watch, and then something happened. You know, some type of magic came down from out of nowhere, and I remember Brad Kotz won 5 straight faceoffs, scored 5 straight goals, and suddenly at 12-5, the next thing I turned around, I looked up and we're ahead 15-12. And I was like, what the hell just happened? You know? Wow. And, of course, then that was our first national championship. So that one's kind of the reason all those banners are hanging in the dome right now is because of that game.
That's cool. Talking to Kyle Fetterly, legendary broadcaster. Well, you are. If you're going, you said the Hall. Yeah. You should be in one yourself, Kyle.
I mean, there's got to be a line. There's got to be a space for you somewhere in there. I mean, it's
this is my 25th year of broadcasting lacrosse, and I really love it. And I talked to Jason Thomas, who's my boss at Learfield, when I'm broadcasting, and I told him, I said, Jason, if you guys want to go in another direction, I won't feel hurt. I've had 25 years on, and I love it. I love to study for it. I mean, I'm studying for it right now as we're sitting here, And I mean, I love talking and engaging with the people with lacrosse and talking with Gary Gate and all that other stuff that goes into it. I said, but if you want to go in another direction, feel free. I won't be hurt at all. He says, we can't. And I go, what do you mean you can't? He says, we can't get anybody cheaper than you.
It's not as funny when you realize it's probably true.
It's your passion. It's your passion. He cannot replace your passion.
I do get passionate about SU lacrosse. I mean, I really do. And the reason is because in 1981, Roy Simmons Jr. walked into the equipment room and looked at my boss at the time and said, Nick, I need a guy to travel with lacrosse. And my boss, Bob Knickerbocker, looked at me. He says, Kyle, you're heading with lacrosse. Roy walked out of the room, and I said, Nick, I don't even know anything about lacrosse, like that. I said, and he says, just grab a toolkit and a chalkboard and get on the bus. And Roy looked at me. He says, we leave at 9 o'clock in the morning. Stuff like that, pack a bag. And that's where it all started. I got on the bus. Roy said, go introduce yourself to the boys. And I walked down the aisle, and, of course, they're like, new guy. And one of the seniors says, what's your name? I said, Kyle Fetterly. He goes, nah, that's too long. We're going to call you El Grande.
El Grande.
El Grande. And I still have players from Finn Thompson calls me that all the time now, one of our starting attackmen.
Well, Kai, you said you're studying for the game. Let's get to it after that thrilling come-from-behind overtime win last week. Tomorrow, number 3, Princeton. Sure. And Hofstra, you've been doing your research there. Who are we going to keep an eye on from the Princeton team? Is there any guy or any number specifically? And then what's got to happen here for an advancement to next weekend?
Well, I'll tell you what, the main man out there, and we saw him 3 years ago, is Coulter McAsee, and he wears number 91. He's an attackman. He's a Tewarton finalist. And we saw him 3 years ago when we were down at Princeton playing him when we almost ruptured Sam English's spleen on a hit from Nick Kakamo. And now they're buddies playing on the same team for us. But we saw him 3 years ago, and we looked at each other and said, "Holy cow, this kid is good," like that. And he is. I mean, he really is good. He's a finalist, and you'll get a full dose of him tomorrow. Number 91 of Coulter McAsee, and their other main guy, in my opinion, is Nate Kabiri, and with Chad Palumbo. This is a very, you know what they are, Gomez and Lisa? What they are is they're disciplined. I mean, Princeton does not beat themselves. When you look at, the stats, they commit like one foul per game, which is unheard of. When they turn the ball over, they turn it over about 8 times a game, which 16, 18 is about the national average, So they don't beat themselves, in other words, and they can play slow and they can play fast. It depends on how you dictate it to them, or they dictate it to you. So, but they're good at both. And the great thing about Syracuse is, with the great game plan that Gary Gate and Pat Marciano, our coaches, had at Duke, we showed that we can play slow. We don't have to go all the time. So. I mean, it should be a real good cat and mouse game, and that's what it is. I mean, because there's only so much you can do in lacrosse out there with 6-on-6, so it turns into the coaches making constant adjustments out there. But the main adjustment that's got to be that hopefully doesn't get made are possessions. You can't, like they say, can't score without the rock.
True.
And Johnny Mullen for us is one of the best in the country without question. And they're a little below 500, where Johnny's about 65%. So hopefully we can get an advantage there, get the ball more often. And when you get the ball more often, you figure out the team that you're playing against really fast. And if you get the ball more often, hopefully you can score a lot more goals.
Kyle, you mentioned foul. They don't do that many, get called that many on Princeton. Last weekend, there was a call in the Harvard game I'd never even heard of before. It was, and I don't remember what happened. Do you know where I'm talking about?
Was the cross check to the back of the head of Joey Spallina?
Maybe, but even the name of the foul was it sounded like a made-up foul, but it was. I was catching a little bit of the game with you and Tim, and you were both kind of discussing that, like you've never even heard it called before.
Well, no, I mean we've had. I don't remember last week, but the week before we had one at the ACC tournament, and Tim and I looked at each other, and even in the booth next to us was Paul Carcaterra working for ESPN, and he said the same thing. He looked through the glass at us with his palms up, and we did the same thing. I've never heard of that before. So we were like, we didn't know either, So, but last week Princeton had the game in control. Gomez, they had the game in control. The game was basically over. Okay, but then that goal magic came out of nowhere. Joey Spallina's trying to pick up a ground ball by himself, and their kid comes in, and they're 20 yards from the goal. I mean, it's not even a threat. And they got a 5-goal lead, and he cross-checks him in the back of the helmet, which, by the way, should have been 2 minutes, not 1 minute. But anyway, full serve, and Syracuse scores 3 goals, and now all of a sudden, the greatest fans in the world are in full throat, and they're back in the game. And I give the Player of the Game award every week, and I gave it to the crowd, and rightfully so. They willed that team across the finish line, and it was never proven more when our kids were lining up to the handshake line, waiting for Harvard to line up there, and they turned and looked up at the crowd. Our kids were pointing to the crowd. And it was them. It was our crowd willed our team across the finish line last week, and that's why I gave them the Player of the Game. I don't think that's ever been done.
No. Well, Kyle, listen, I know you're busy. You're already in Long Island at Hofstra getting ready and prepping for tomorrow's game, but thanks for the few minutes here, and congratulations, my friend, on your retirement. So at the end of when? At the end of the lacrosse season? Or
Oh, no, it's the end of June, but John Wildhack and my boss, Jason Thomas, have already said, you're going to do it. You're going to still do it next year? And I said, dude, that's your call, not mine. And they said, yeah, we'd love to have you do it. I said, well, I may not be around. I may be some other part of the country. And they said, don't worry, we'll fly in like that.
Wow.
I said, oh, really?
Okay.
And I said, yeah. And I said, well, I'm going to need a guy with a tuxedo and a placard with my name on it and a limo like that. JT looked at me. He says, "You'll get a Prius."
Yep. If you get anything at all, right?
Nice.
Hey, Kyle, listen, thanks. Go Orange. The game tomorrow right here. It's the scheduled 2:30 face-off, but it's the second game, so there's the chance it might not be exactly at 2:30, right?
There's no chance. It'll be at 2:30.
Okay. But we'll have the action right here on the TK99 and TK105. Say hi to Tim Leonard for us, Kyle, and I'll put you on hold just for a second, okay?
Sure, sounds good.
The John Madden of college lacrosse broadcasting, that is our own Kyle Fetterly,